Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana state, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their Golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Well, thanks for joining us. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. We are brought to you by Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewed in downtown Great Falls with a second tap room over in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Thorny, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing pretty good, man. It was a holiday today, so no school. So my wife took the day off, watched the kids while I worked in our little corner office and tried to actually do some work. It was an all right day. How about you?
Yep, we had a long 3-day weekend, President's Day. We got snow over here in Spokane today, so I was busy out there snow blowing the driveway and tuning with the snowblower. The throttle cable was a little bit janky, so I had to do a little bit of a work on the old snowblower today, but I got it running good, and everything's golden now.
Look at you go, Mr. Handyman.
Yeah. Right on. Well, Ryan, I guess we have to. We got to talk about the Eastern series that happened over on Thursday and Saturday. We'll talk about what beer we're drinking. And I think we have a couple buy or sell questions on the back end.
Yeah, it should be a pretty short episode this time because they're not fun game to recap. We have no game to preview because it was actually just announced today that MSU has some COVID protocols. So the Idaho State series for Thursday and Saturday has been canceled. So
yeah, that leaves us with 4 more games left on the regular season.
Yep, getting dangerously close to that 500 ball. I'm sure we'll end up talking about that at some point during this episode. But yeah, if anyone's been listening, or you probably know what we're talking about right now.
All right, Ryan, let's get us going. What are you drinking tonight, buddy?
So that's probably the best thing that'll happen tonight is this beer I'm drinking. It is it's by Bowie in Astoria, Oregon. It is a Northwest Red Ale. It is 6.7% alcohol. It is 65 IBUs. Big, malty, hoppy. It's a really good red beer, man. It's got nice hoppiness to it, but it's not too bitter. I think it's something you might really enjoy. It's kind of a cool, simplistic can with just like red and white, and then like a red buoy just floating in the water there. So yeah, it's good beer. I found it at that Elizabeth station that I went to last week in Bellingham. Bought one single can. It's really good.
Nice. I like malty beers as well. Like a good Oktoberfest. Very delicious.
Yeah.
Excellent, man. All right. Well, I have Sierra Nevada's Hazy Little IPA. I think this is probably about 2 years old. Not this specific beer in my hand, but they came out with it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, when the hazy craze started going out, I had a 6-pack in my fridge. I haven't previewed this year. I think maybe I've had it in the past. Anyway, Sierra Nevada is one of my favorite breweries. The Hazy Little IPA, you can find it pretty much everywhere. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. It's got the cool, I think down here it might be blue and gold. It looks blue and gold down in my basement, but the lighting's pretty poor. So there's a plus for you.
Well, we definitely need a couple beers in us to get through this episode.
All right, let's jump into it, buddy.
Actually, before we get into the basketball thing, I do want to mention the news came out today that Vincent Jackson passed away. Do you remember when, first of all, I guess Vincent Jackson, NFL wide receiver for the Chargers, the Buccaneers. I think he might have played for the Saints for a year or two. I'm not entirely sure, but he played his college football at Northern Colorado in the early 2000s. And they actually came to Bozeman, I believe it was 2003. And I remember watching Vincent Jackson play in person. And he's 38 years old and he passed away today. I just thought I'd give a little news update on some old Big Sky conference information. Although I guess Northern Colorado wasn't in the Big Sky back then, but regardless, just thought I'd pass that news along.
Yeah, that was very surprising, very sad. I hadn't remembered that he played for Northern Colorado, nor did I remember that he came to Montana State, but I did see some news clippings on that.
Yeah, there's just some guys that came to Bozeman. If you recall, like the best whatever guys you remember playing, Vincent Jackson is definitely up there with stupid Danny Woodhead. Another guy comes to mind. Just our condolences here for Vincent Jackson.
Yeah.
All right. Well, who wants to kick us off with this fun episode where we got swept at home by Eastern Washington in a non-competitive series? Do you want to take the first game stat-wise?
Okay, we'll switch it up today. I'll take the first game.
Let's switch it up. I feel like it.
All right. Well, first of all, before we even get into the stats, Ryan, I can say both you and I went into this week with really high hopes. We thought this would be a competitive game. We have got our butts kicked by Eastern in football and in basketball for a while now, specifically on the men's side. And I know my hopes were completely dashed after Thursday and just buried by the time we got into Saturday. But I mean,
yep.
we're going to get into it. Let's just take a look at the Thursday game. So coming into Thursday, Eastern was on a 5-game winning streak. They were first place team. Actually, they might not have been first place. They maybe were first place or Weber was, one of the two, back-to-back series, right? So we ended up losing this game 93-77. The telltale of the game to me was just Eastern's efficiency. We'll run down some stats right now. So if you're looking at from the field, Eastern shot 52%. We were only at 36%. From 3-point line, Eastern almost at 50%. And then Montana State was just hovering around 36%. This is the stat that really gets me. Eastern was 96.4% from the stripe. They shot 27 out of 28 free throws from the game.
Somehow they outdid Weber State in the previous game, who was 28 for 30. They somehow one-upped that. Yikes.
It was maddening. It was maddening. We only shot 80%. But there you go. I mean
80% is good. What do you mean only 80? That's a good free throw shooting percent for a normal college program.
Yeah, everything else seemed to be fairly consistent throughout the stats, but that free throw percentage was just killer. They almost shot a perfect 100%, one away. It was remarkable. And so, everything seemed to go right in the second half for the Eagles there.
And the Eagles were led by Tanner Gross, who scored 26 points, had 12 rebounds, a nice little double-double there. 34 minutes on 8 of 13 from the field, 1 of 2 from downtown, and 9 for 9, like everyone else, from the free throw line.
I think Meadows had a big game, too, on Thursday.
He did have a big game, too. He played all 40 minutes, and he scored 21 points on 7 for 13 shooting. So, big game from those two guys. They kind of were the killers in that first game. The Bobcats only had 3 players in double figures: Amanadamu, Mike Hood, and Nick Gonzalez, as Nick Gonzalez came in and knocked down 3 out of 4 3-point shooting, which, good shooting by him. That's what we need him to do.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, this game was just not super competitive, so not a lot to talk about statistically by individual players for the Bobcats.
Not a lot, but I'm looking over on Eastern side of the ball. So Kim Aiken, Meadows, and Tanner Gross, their big scores, 26, 21, 20 points. All those guys are coming back next year, too. Tanner and Kim Aiken are juniors this year, and Meadows is He's a sophomore, so
well, everyone's coming back for the exact same status next year, right? For any program because of the free year. So
that's a good point. Yeah, I mean,
but I know what you mean.
Yeah,
that's impressive. Yeah, they're a young team. Eastern is, and they're just getting better and better, and they're peaking right at the right time to just pummel us. So, yay.
Ryan, do you want to talk about the stats for the second game?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go into a little bit more on this game?
So I think we'll just roll the stats in the second game because they were honestly largely the same game in many ways. Maybe a little bit different flow and a little different way we got to the result. But either way, blowout losses, both games. The Cats ended up losing game number 2, 85-69. Eastern shot 52% from the field. Cats did a little bit better, shooting 46%. But they only had 50 attempts in the game, whereas the first game, I want to say they definitely had more than that. Geez, I wish I had it up. I just pulled it right off of it. 71 attempts. So, yes, we only had 50 attempts in the second game versus 71 in the first game. So, we shot a little bit better, but had way less shots. We were only 4 for 16 from downtown for 25%. That was killer. While Eastern shot 48%, right around what they did in the first game, just under 50%. Eastern was only 12 for 15 from the line of this game, but didn't matter because they could shoot the ball wherever else they wanted to. They weren't even trying to get the line this one as they scored 85 points while only taking 15 free throw attempts. Cats got to the line 26 times, hit 19 of those for 73%. Again, he looked down the rest of it, like what else really is there to see? I mean, Eastern clearly moves the ball around really well. They had 18 assists in this game. The Cats had 10. That's one of the hallmarks of Eastern, and we'll certainly get into it, is they're very good at finding the guy who has the best shot. They're very good at moving the ball around. It is very evident from that they are very proficient in that side of things. And I mean, they started off the second half in this game on a 27-5 run or something like that. It was a 3-point game at halftime. I remember specifically you and I talking the last minute at halftime, man, the Cats can't go down by 9 here. And we actually cut it down to 3. I don't remember the exact circumstances. We were down by 5, and Easter came down, missed a shot, and I don't know, something like that. But
sure,
we were feeling relatively optimistic going into halftime, and then Eastern just came and blew the doors off us, and the game honestly was over within the first 5 minutes of the second half. And do you want to admit here what you and I did? 13, 14 minutes left in the game.
Sure, man. We both turned it off.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
I couldn't do it anymore. It's a Saturday. I got other things to do. Wife's getting cranky. Got to get off. There's no point in sticking around watching us get just absolutely blown out of the gym. It was over. It was over at that point. So not a whole lot of analysis from the second half on this game because I honestly stopped watching the game.
Oh, you and I mean, we got irrationally salty. I just was in a bad mood the rest of the game. I went off on Twitter a little bit inside of our text group. I had to apologize to the Eastern guys later on.
No one said anything about your apology because I don't really think anyone cared about your first little rant.
Yeah,
anyway.
They're like,
but it was good of you to do it, right?
Eastern outscored us by 16 points in both games. But the second game, though, they just blew us out of the water in the second half. What was interesting about that, Thorny? I thought we played pretty good defense on the second game, at least the first half. We were much more active. We were disrupting their flow. But second half, man, there was a couple things we started off with where we would make a silly mistake, and man, they would just pummel us. And one thing that Eastern did really well through both games is as soon as someone was getting hot, whether it was Meadows in the first game or a Groves in the second game, they would just continue to feed that person until that person essentially goes cold. And, well, if you look at her scores and you look at those total points, they weren't going cold. So that must be a strategy that Eastern uses, but they just continue to just pass the ball at an extreme level, not an extreme, like a high level, but just an efficient way. And, man, they just feed the high hand. And when one guy goes down, the other guy comes up. They just have a boatload of shooters on that team. Holy cow.
They can all shoot. And like I said earlier, they do a very good job of distributing the ball around, either finding the hot hand or finding the open shot. Eastern just didn't take bad shots.
No. They made 13 3-pointers the second game. We only made 4. I mean, that's crazy. When we only make 4 3-pointers, we're doomed.
Yeah. We're definitely a team that needs a little bit hot hand from the outside, at least when our defense isn't been there. and our defense has not been there for 4 games. What do we've given up an average of like 84 points a game in this 4-game losing streak?
Well, I don't have that number, but yeah, you probably could average that out. We have been beaten in the last 4 games by an average of 12 points between Weber and Eastern. I did calculate that. And I also calculated the last 4 games against Eastern. Here are the totals for the last 4 games against Eastern. And these are all Eastern scores first. So 85-69, 93-77, 74-49, 71-58. Eastern in the last 4 games has beaten us by an average of 17.5 points.
Close. Competitive.
They are kryptonite, man. We are not even competitive with Eastern. And what got me a little salty on Saturday in general is, hey, I live in Spokane. I've been to Cheney. Cheney is what Cheney is. And so for them to continue to get these elite players, specifically the scorers that come there and just continue to be just dominant in football and basketball, it just kind of blows my mind. It really does, because well, I'll just keep it at that. It's just it's just mind-boggling to me.
So I'm looking at our last 6 games, even 7 games against Division I opponents. We'd only given up more than 70 points one time, and that was 74 points when we were at Northern Colorado in the second game. The rest of them in the 60s. We held NAU both times to 51 and 53. Mm-hmm. So then we come in and we lose to Weber 96-88, 82-74, and then Eastern 93-77, and then 85-69. Like, the scoring has been okay. In fact, the scoring has been better than it was in our winning streak, but we're giving up like 20, 25 points more per game in these games than we were in the first 6 games of conference. Yeah. But I know Weber and Eastern are clearly like head and shoulders above some of the other teams in the Big Sky, but I thought we were more competitive than that. And coming out of the Weber game, even though we gave up a ton of points, both those games were competitive. We lost by 8 in the first game and a chance to cut it down. And we lost by 8 in both games. And both games were at one point either 2 or 1 possession games late in the game that we just kind of let slip away. So I felt pretty good coming out of that. I was not prepared for Eastern to come in and just slap us out of our own stadium, to be honest, to be completely honest.
You know, one thing that Eastern and Weber have in common is their bigs can shoot from all over, including threes.
Hey, Bello tried a 3 in one of these games, remember?
I don't.
He took a 3-pointer.
Well, we don't have 3 bigs who can hit 3-pointers. And so I noticed that when we would, like if they're doing a high pick and roll kind of offense, we would give those bigs quite a bit of room out there. And they're just like Bassett for Weber and Groves for Eastern. They're just beeline threes, just drilling them. So
one of the questions I asked you, I believe last week in the Weber State game, did these 2 games change your opinion on the Bobcat defense? And I believe you said not really, but how do you feel about that now? How are you feeling about the Bobcat defense?
Yeah, I think they need more defensive endurance. I wrote that down in my little pad right here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way I can say it. Like, do they have to endure the second half? Both first halves in this series come away going, okay, we're hanging. Especially the second game, 36-33. We were down a little bit more in the first one, 49-42. So, yeah, I guess a little similar, but there's some good things. Montana State started really well in both these games. In fact, we had pretty big leads. We had a 7-point lead in second game, and I want to say maybe even more. No, 6-point lead in the first game. Well, pretty similar. So, I mean, there was that, but all of a sudden, it was just like when Eastern started hitting shots, they didn't stop. There was no scoring droughts from there to the final whistle. So, man, like I said, defensive endurance. If you're looking at this, Brian, kind of like a run, like an endurance event, and we had nothing in the gas tank in the second half. We were just getting beat off the ball. Eastern was bringing the energy. They were getting hyped. their coach brings the energy, their bench brings the energy, and they were just bearing us. So I don't know.
I think it really just boils down to, yes, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that we just look like we ran out of gas.
Mm-hmm.
I think both mentally and physically. It's like we just kind of like, all right, well, this is getting out of hand. I don't know what it was. Like, it's just our defense intensity isn't there. And I think Danny Sprinkle, listening to, maybe it was Coulter's show, ESPN Missoula. He had Danny Sprinkle on. I don't remember what it was exactly at this point. I wish I knew. But he was saying, like, it's, we just need to focus on our urgency. And there is no urgency on defense. And there hasn't been for at least the last 2 or 3 games, where we just aren't flying to the ball. We're giving guys too much space. We're not getting our hands up. We're getting beat off the dribble almost consistently by anybody, which is just leading to wide open runners down the lane, kickouts for wide open 3-pointers, and teams are just shooting the lights out against us. Absolutely, just not missing anywhere. And at some point, maybe 1, maybe even 2 games, like, all right, team catches fire. It is what it is. 4 games in a row where teams have shot over 52% against the Bobcats. That's defense.
Yeah. And
I don't know how to fix that. I think Sprinkle needs to maybe mess with the rotation or something, go to a zone more. I don't know. But I honestly just think C needs to light a fire under the team and tell them to just make it all about defense. Just get those hands up, get in the passing lanes, get after the ball, be annoying, be a pest. Like, try that. If you get beat off the ball, whatever, but at least give it your best effort you can. I don't know. It just seems like the effort isn't really there on the defensive side, and we're getting run out of the gym. And once it starts going south, it really goes south.
Do you think Sprinkle's a little too easy on the team?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You'll never really know what goes on behind the scenes. I know it seemed like Brian Fish was way too hard on his players. Sprinkle seems, I don't know. He seems fine. I wouldn't say like Shante Legans is hard on his team. Would you?
I haven't watched enough Eastern basketball to tell you.
And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that one, but it doesn't strike me one way or the other yet.
Yeah. A couple parting thoughts. Looking at the schedule, Ryan, it's really, I guess interesting is the wrong word, but hey, if you look at our schedule, had the Montana series not been canceled, we went Montana 2 games, Weber 2 games, and Eastern 2 games. That's a really tough stretch for a young team like Montana State. When you're facing 3 of the traditional powers in the Big Sky, I don't know how that even happened. It just seems like Montana State had just kind of an unfavorable position. So Weber was, I think, probably in first place or second place coming into our series. Take 2 losses against them, and then Eastern. I mean, I think they're on a 7-game winning streak right now. They're the hottest team in the Big Sky. And I thought Weber was the best team I saw. No, Eastern clearly is the best team. They're 9-2 in conference. We slipped to 6-4, 9-7 overall, and Eastern's just gaining momentum right now at 10-6. So, man, it feels like we got caught in a buzzsaw the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Eastern is up to 126 in Ken Palm, which is best in the Big Sky by 33 points, 33 positions, I guess, whatever you want to call it, over Weber State, next best at 159. The Big Sky is starting to slip to where the Big Sky slips to. A lot of teams in the 200s, low 200s. Idaho at 351.
So my parting thought on this, Thorny, is if anything, Montana looked the Giants in the eye the last 2 weeks, and they're a measuring stick, and we know exactly where we're at. We have a month left, although I was hoping to play Idaho State, who's a surprisingly fairly decent team.
Yeah, that would have been a tougher game than I was going to think it was 4 games ago.
Yeah, for sure. So those got canceled, which sucks, but maybe it gives us some time to reevaluate and I don't know, maybe, like you said, maybe he's going to throw some fire underneath the team. Interestingly enough, the Idaho State series was a split, a home and home, which I find it a little bit interesting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Thereafter, we play at Idaho, which is arguably the worst team. Not arguably, they are the worst team. They haven't won. They're 0-14 in conference. And then we finished up with Sac State. Sac State is right below us at 4-4 in conference. And so there is some time to maybe gain a little bit of momentum before Boise. And that's like the biggest hope we can have right now. It's year 2 under Danny Sprinkle. He's still going through some growing pains. I still like after Saturday, I was pretty upset. And so I'm glad we didn't talk on Saturday about like how I felt about it. But looking back now, I could see, just be patient, give him some time. It's too early to really tell. Like, can't expect too much out of the crew right now. I think we did get a little bit of fool's gold with our early conference schedule, but we were playing some pretty weak teams at that point. But if we can gain some momentum going into Boise, maybe we could still end up getting that bye game and hopefully winning at least our first game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, talking now, much better idea than trying to talk Saturday or even Sunday. I was pretty down. I was like, they're not going to win their game, but it's not sinking as bad. Now we've made it through the gauntlet. I was looking forward to having 6 more games. Now we only have 4 more games left to kind of right the ship. I guess now we get the correction course, right? We get to play Idaho twice, and if those aren't convincing, if those are anything but convincing wins, it does not bode well for the Bobcats down the stretch, in my opinion. But those should be 2 wins. Sac State, I don't know much about Sac State. Didn't know where that's going to go. But yeah, I think it sets us up for a nice little potentially catch fire again in the tournament. Maybe you have a shot to win a tournament game. You never know. But it's one thing that just kind of frustrates me is you're talking about the Bobcats being a young team, which it's not true from an experience level, but it is from a minutes played together aspect. Where I'm looking at, that's a cool thing that Ken Palm does. It tells you the minutes continuity between the team, and we're 227th in the country in that. Whereas from experience wise, we're 91st, but that's what happens when you get transfers, right? They played a lot of basketball, just not necessarily in Bozeman or together. So you were hoping that the team would start trending upwards and how they're playing and start looking better as the year went on, as they get more of those minutes together and chemistry, but it did not surface at all in the Weber State or Eastern Washington series. Maybe in the Weber State one, it did, but seemed to regress in the Eastern Washington game. Maybe Eastern is just that absolutely much better than the Bobcats. I mean, that's quite possible. They're typically the cream of the crop, or right up near there every year, competing for conference championships, and looks to be no different than this year. So, yeah, just got to wash the game away, wash your hands, move on to 2 weeks from now, I guess. Focus on Idaho, focus on getting healthy if there's any kind of COVID situation, whatever, and get back to work on defense and figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to do right now.
That's all there is.
Start recruiting some better shooters.
Start taking better shots.
That is true. We didn't talk about shot selection, and I thought that was a major point in this series. Eastern had awesome shot selection. We had terrible shot selection. We couldn't get a shot. We couldn't make our shot, and I think that was the biggest difference when you watch Eastern run their offense. They could create their shot, and most of the time is a really good one too. So, tip of the cap to Eastern. They are the cream of the Big Sky right now, and they showed Montana State where we belong.
That's right. Yep. But we have a chance to get it back on track. So
absolutely,
it's
not over yet.
It's not over yet, but let's go ahead and get out of this game. I'm done. This was not a fun series to talk about or to watch, but let's move on.
All right, let's close this thing out with some buy or sell. Thorny, I got 2 of them for you, buddy.
Yep.
All right. Thorny, buy or sell casseroles.
Buy. Every kind of casserole on the planet. There's no bad casseroles. I'm a casserole man. And then Montana's basically the Midwest when it comes to casserole territory. Specifically, I'll give you one right now. Buy or sell tater tot casserole.
Oh, buy.
I love that stuff. It's so bad for you, man. It's so just processed garbage, and yet it's delicious.
What's the most important ingredient in a casserole?
The gravy, the cream, the whatever, the sauce.
Cream of mushroom.
Cream of mushroom.
There it is. All right, Thorny. Buy or sell the idea of the February swoon.
as it pertains to Montana State, to anybody
To Montana State.
that were in one?
Yep.
Okay.
No, not that we're in one, just the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, I buy it.
You think it's a thing?
I think it's a thing, man. It just happens to be basically the second half of the season of conference slate. That's just what it is. And historically, the Bobcats don't seem to do well. I think it's just in a normal year, it's when you start playing teams twice, the conditioning starts to really show. The teams with the stars that start carrying your team are the teams that rise up. And I think it's a real thing to be able to come out of the gate strong and have all those things kind of work against you the second time around. So yes, I believe February swoons are a real thing.
Okay. That's all I have for you.
All right. Well, that's funny. Castrol, you just gave me a one word thing, and I was pretty much going to do the same for you. I was going to say buy or sell fried pickles.
Ooh, I've never had a fried pickle, but on the premise, I do like pickles. I do like fried food, so I'm going to buy.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even if you don't like pickles, it's just like it's a delicious, like salty, tart combination. I don't know. It's really good. It's really good.
What do you dip yours in?
Ranch.
Typical Montana.
When in doubt, dip the fried food into ranch. It will taste good.
What's your favorite condiment?
Condiment?
Yeah.
Probably ranch. Or ketchup. I love ketchup, man. I do. I love ketchup.
You ever sprinkle pepper on your ketchup?
No.
You should.
It's scientifically proven that Heinz is like the perfect blend of all five of the taste senses, you know? So
I didn't know that.
if you add pepper to it, you're just upsetting the balance, man.
I like a heavy dose of pepper on my ketchup.
Well, yeah. Now if you get into like spicy ketchup talk, I love spicy ketchup on sweet potato fries. Money. You gotta have something spicy to offset the sweet.
Yeah, the different flavors of ketchup. Now we could go down that whole boat. Let's not.
Buy or sell, we can hold Idaho to under 50% shooting for this series.
For the series. Well, if you're shooting 50%, that's a pretty good game.
Good. But teams have been roasting us on that. So
yeah, I am going to buy that. I think I still believe in Danny Sprinkle. I still believe in that he wants to be a defensive team. I don't know why all of a sudden we look like a team that's just kind of lost its way when we were leading with Big Sky Conference in scoring defense at that point. So I don't know, but I think we'll get back to it. And it might not look like we've hoped, but Idaho State's a really bad team. So yes, I'm going to buy that.
Idaho.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Idaho.
Well, all right. Well, anything else you want to talk about on this?
Nope.
We've probably spent more time on our buy or sell, just chit-chatting about casseroles and fried pickles. But honestly, that was the funnest part. Most fun of this entire thing to talk about. So sorry we got a little excited there, but the recap wasn't all that fun to do. So anyway, let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for listening. I want to thank Jeremiah Johnson, as always, for being our most awesome sponsor. You can find us on Twitter, RRCatcast. You can find us on rrcatcast.com. Don't forget, you can submit to us anytime you want through the website, through the email, rrcatcast@gmail.com, Twitter, wherever. You can submit golden coolie questions, and if we read it on an episode and we select you as the winner, we will mail you a golden coolie. So, woo. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Let's go ahead and get out of here with a Go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.
All right. I got places to be.